Welcome to this channel about keeping small tropical lizards such as anoles and grass lizards into compact bioactive enclosures. My name is Vincent and this is the second video within a whole playlist on how to set up a compact bioactive enclosure. And it became actually the fourth video because I started the numbering with 0 and then the second video became a part 1, part 2. But if you just follow the playlist from the top to the bottom, you will eventually get a compact bioactive enclosure. What I typically do with these introduction parts of the videos is I explain what we did in the previous video and I will explain what we will do in this video. So in the previous video we added the Fern Root background into the enclosure and I use a little bit of a specific technique there. So I cut up the bigger Fern Root plates into smaller pieces, and then with those smaller pieces I create a sort of mosaic in the enclosure, and personally I think it looks better and also the moss can grow better into it that way, which is the topic of this video. So in this video we are gonna apply the moss to the Fern Root, so it becomes a mossy Fern Root background. And I also have a specific technique here. So what I do is I put the moss into a blender, so you get tiny pieces of moss. It should not become like grains or powder, but you should get little strings. And with a painting brush I add them to the Fern Root background. You put a grow lamp on top of it and then the moss can start to grow. And that's the thing we are gonna do in this video. And I will also explain the shopping list. So what kind of stuff do you need to follow this video? And that's it. So let's get into the video. So the shopping list part of this video, and for this video we actually need quite some things to apply the moss and to blend the moss, and I will explain quickly why we need all this. So first of all we need a blender to blend the moss into tiny strings, and we need a bowl and a filter to filter the strings out of the water, and the finer the mesh of the filter is, the better. We need demi water, so I keep the moss and the Fern Root at all times a little bit moist so the moss doesn't dry out and die. And I use demi water for that, not water from the tap. Let's say normal water, because then you can get colic strains. You need any sort of water, how do you call this thing? A water spraying bottle to apply the demi water to the moss or the Fern Root. We also need this foil to seal off the enclosure at the end, because it really needs to hold humidity to let the moss grow properly. And you can attach the foil with painter's tape to the enclosure, because this tape doesn't leave stains on the plastic of the enclosure. So that's for the tooling. Then of course we need moss itself, and as I said in the previous video, I use 3 types of moss. So the first one is this ball moss, and I think I'm gonna use half of this piece because it's quite a lot. Then I use a little bit of Sphaghum moss. Of course it should be alive mosses. And then this is the main part, the most important moss, which is Java moss. And what I typically hope is that most of the background will be covered with Java moss, and that also at certain spots the Sphaghum moss and the ball moss sets in a little bit. So you get a nice mixture of mosses on your background. And then yeah, finally you need a grow lamp. So I use these Arcadias, the Jingle Dawn, and yeah, this lamp is really important if you want the moss to start growing. So summarized: stuff to plant the moss, something to apply the moss, something to keep the moss humid, the moss itself, yeah, you can also pick other types of moss of course, and a grow lamp to let it grow. So yeah, we are now at the main part of this video, and what I will do, I will make a few time jumps, and then at each time jump I will explain what I'm gonna do next, and I will also name a few tips, and that way we will finally get to a yeah, mossy fern root background where the moss still has to grow of course. So yeah, the first thing that we are going to do, and this is really important, but we are gonna make the fern root background really moist. In Dutch we say bevloeien, and I think actually the English word is irrigate, but that's apparently used more for agriculture, where they put a whole piece of land underwater. And yeah, it's really important, because if you don't do this, then and let's say you will finish your enclosure, you put the animals in, and you will start to spray your enclosure, the background will never really get wet, because it's impossible to spray so much that the background really gets wet. So yeah, what I do, and I made a quick video of it and I will show it after this part, but I really put my background underwater for like 2, 3, 4 hours, and I also replenish the water a few times, so it's really wet, it's really moist, it feels a bit spongy. And yeah, as I said, you really have to do this, it's important, and we are gonna jump to that now. So yeah, here we are again. As I said, really important to moisten the fern root background properly, and also do this if you don't apply moss on it. So you should just always do this yeah, when you are using a fern root background. Yeah, then we are now going to the second step, which is blend the moss. So I put all 3 mosses into a blender. I roughly add 1 liter of water, and then I just shortly blend it for like 30 seconds, maximum 1 minute, and then I filter it. I actually filter the water twice, so I really get all the moss out of it. And yeah, maybe also a tip here: first put in the water in the blender and then the moss, so that the moss strings don't are connected or are directly in contact with the blades in the blender, because they are actually more strong than you might think. So yeah, I will now jump to the part where I show how big or what the structure is of the moss after the blending. Okay, so here we are. I blended the moss. So I put all 3 mosses in a blender. It was roughly 600 milliliters of moss. A bit of a strange way to say it, but that's how I measured it. I roughly added a liter of water and then blend the moss. I filtered the water twice with the filter I showed at the shopping list, and then this is the end result. So a sort of a pop of moss. And here you can better see what the structure of the moss is. So it's like tiny strings, and we are gonna apply this with a painting brush on the fern root. And what I also do, that's why I kept the water, I will also pour this water into the fern root, because I just want to get as much as possible spores of moss into the fern root so it can start to grow. And I can already tell that this is way too much, so I could have used less. And what I typically do is what I have left, I put in plastic baskets like this, and I put this in front of my window, and then the moss also starts to regrow in these baskets. And then for the next enclosure I don't have to buy new moss, so because actually the Java moss is quite expensive. And for the next step, my biggest tip is just take your time. Just get the painting brush and take your time to apply it as good as possible, because the better you spread it out, the better the end result will be. So for me it maybe takes like an hour. I'm just gonna go outside now and put this stuff on the background with a painting brush. And maybe also a tip here that I forgot to say up front, but I did the blending in the kitchen, and now my whole house is smelling like moss. So if you have an option to do this in the garage or outside or something, that is perhaps a good idea. And I'm gonna do some moss painting now, and I will jump to the end result there. So here we are after the moss painting, and as you can see, I try to apply it as good as I can on the whole surface, and at certain spots where there's a little bit of depth in the fern root, I also really try to fill those gaps. I also poured the remaining water into the background, and I already put the grow lamp on top to show this as a result. And this is actually it. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna clean up the enclosure a little bit. I'm gonna wrap the top with the foil, then put the grow lamp on top of it, and then I'm gonna put it in my rack with enclosures there. And I will jump to that part, and then I will explain a little bit what you have to do in the period after this step. So here we are at the final part of this main part of this video, and I nicely sealed up the enclosure with the foil and the tape, so humidity really stays in. And if you do that properly, also after spraying, you really see the whole enclosure becoming dense with water drops. And now we have to wait. So what I do, I set a timer for the grow light to 11 hours of light per day. And so you don't need a lot of light. Sometimes also I have the feeling in the morning when the light turns on that the moss has grown more in the night than it does during the day. I guess also in nature moss grows at shady places. And I spray it twice per day. So I will spray the tank or enclosure in the morning, in the evening, and yeah, after about 4 to 6 weeks you should have a nice result. The moss should really have set in, and then we can start with the next step. So yeah, that's it. 11 hours light per day. Spray it twice per day with the Demi water, of course. And yeah, that's it for the main part. And now we go to the roundup part of this video. So yeah, for the roundup part of this video, I actually had to wear my hat now because there's no more place in the rack behind me. And yeah, what I typically do at the roundup part is do a quick recap. What did we do this video, and a looking forward to the next video. So yeah, for this video we put on the moss on the fern root, so we get the mossy fern root background. And yeah, we started with the shopping list, so what do you need to follow this playlist. And then we started with applying the moss. So we first had to moist the background really well, very important, otherwise you cannot get it that moist anymore later in the enclosure when your animals are in. Then we put the moss into the blender and made a sort of a pop of the moss. Then we applied the moss with a painting brush on the background, and yeah, then the final part is to seal up the enclosure, put a grow lamp on top of it, and then the moss can start growing. And yeah, then you have to wait a few weeks. Yeah, make sure the moss has enough light, not too much light, and you have to keep it really moist. So try to spray at least 2 times per day. And yeah, then we go to the next part, and that will be putting in the hydration layer into the enclosure. And I will also tell a bit more there about how I do water management, because that has to do, of course, with the hydration layer. And yeah, that's it for this video. If you are still here, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, I leave that all up to you, but highly appreciate it. And yeah, we will see each other when we get there.